Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Barry Machado. I taught for 35 years at Washington and Lee, retiring in June of 2005, at which time I had much more time on my hands to do historical research. And given my interest in George Marshall, this is the place to spend most of my time digging and discovering. So at present I'm working on a book on George Marshall and the origins of the Atlantic Partnership. I hope that it comes to fruition soon.
And can you talk a little bit more about what brought you to the Marshall Foundation for your visit?
Well, many years ago I was faculty advisor and research consultant in the George Marshall Scholarship Program, which involved undergraduate students in the surrounding universities and colleges. And at that time I came to get a handle on the collections and the materials here at the Marshall Library. And now, having exhausted the Marshall papers and all collateral collections of friends and associates of Marshall and interviews transcribed by Forrest Pogue for producing his authorized biography of George C. Marshall, I've just about exhausted, after many, many weeks of research, all relevant primary materials that would be indispensable to anybody wanting to write a dependable book on George Marshall. And there have been some undependable books written on George Marshall, so what I'm trying to do is to base them, anchor them in the primary materials that are housed here and that are indispensable to scholars.
And can you talk about anything particularly interesting you found during your research this week?
I would say that over the last couple of years as I've put this book together, that I have come better to understand George Marshall's value system, his remarkable personal traits, and aspects of his life that really had almost no light shed upon them by Forrest Pogue and other biographers that have dealt with Marshall. So I would say that when the book comes out, please read it carefully, because it's I think a very different look at George Marshall, and I have tried to argue, no, I have argued, and I hope with success, that George Marshall deserves being put at the center of the story of the origins of the Marshall Plan. He has had he's been sort of off stage, or maybe off center, and I've tried to center him in the story, because I think that he's much more than somebody who's lent his name or who has been its principal lobbyist or salesman. That the very design of the Marshall Plan bears a much larger imprint of George Marshall than I think even Forrest Pogue allowed. So there are plenty of resources here at the Marshall Library that invite even more revisionist work on George Marshall. Not revisionist in a negative sense, but revisionist that will give you a much fuller understanding of a very remarkable person.
And is there anything else you'd like to add about your research visit or your experiences researching at the library over the years?
Yes, one of the special features of the Marshall Library is that they are an extraordinary helpful group of custodians of his memory, and I have gotten particularly valuable assistance, and that there has been virtually no request that I have made that has not elicited help and professional courtesy and assistance. So for that, I'm very grateful.